40 minutes of screen time, not a single shot fired, yet more tense than falling into a nest of Gundarks? Yes. Andor Episode 4 is the best Star Wars of the Disney era. There will be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen Andor Episode 4, turn back now. This week's episode picks up right where Episode 3 left off, with Cassian Andor whisked away by Lullen to join the ranks of the rebellion. But Andor isn't so willing to join, only to be whisked. We learn a little more about his backstory and get the first of this episode's many connections to the wider Star Wars galaxy. Andor fought at the Battle of Minban, depicted in Solo: A Star Wars Story. Now, when we first meet Han on Minban, the battle is depicted with a lot of grit and intensity, but that is pretty soon undercut by the sillier tones of Woody Harrelson's character's introduction and Han's subsequent rather quick escape from the battlefield. Andor brings back some of the seriousness of this battle by telling us that the people of Minban are actually fighting each other because of lies told by the Empire, and this recontextualizes the battle and returns some of the weight that Solo's scenes took away. Less original, perhaps, is the part of Andor's story that seems to parallel Han Solo's, in that he's a former Imperial soldier. In this case, he was a cook, but he was a soldier on Minban, who ran off and has been stealing and smuggling ever since, just to survive. Eventually, Andor and Solo both join the rebellion, though Andor is obviously a darker character because he's willing to kill both the bad guys and the good guys if it means getting the job done, whereas we've only ever seen Han shoot the bad guy bounty hunters. Yes, Han did shoot first. Both Han and Cassian also initially joined the rebel cause for money, but eventually abandoned the promise of financial reward in order to benefit their friends and the cause itself. Will Cassian actually become friends with any of the rebels he meets in this episode? It's hard to tell. Val could be someone to him, or she might die in next week's assault on the Imperial garrison. We don't get to learn much about the rebel cell that Val leads, or much about her, but I do think her portrayal is on point. She has no choice but to add Cassian to the mission, or else Lullen will pull the funding and resources, but she doesn't entirely trust Cassian either. We can see flashes of doubt in her eyes before she beckons her men to follow orders with steely resolve. Lullen, played by the fabulous Stellan Skarsgård, doesn't seem like the type who has actual friends either, at least not ones that he's not willing to dispose of if he needs to. We do get one allusion to the Force this week in the form of the blue kyber crystal that Lullen hands Cassian as a bargaining chip. I'm intrigued to see if we'll learn why that crystal means so much to Lullen, and if Cassian's possession of it will somehow tie into Jyn Erso. Speaking of tie-ins, this episode ties into a larger galaxy, and by doing so brings the promise of an MCU-like connected universe to the fore more than any other of the various Disney Star Wars film and TV projects. But it does so in a way that feels both organic and expansive, actually broadening the Star Wars galaxy, even as we get familiar visuals of Coruscant, mentions of Ryloth and Scarif, and the reintroduction of Senator Mon Mothma, the future and possibly current leader of the rebellion. We get to see and hear how the Empire operates. We learn about a handful of its governing and mining operations across the galaxy from the introduction of the leaders of the Imperial Security Bureau. It's refreshing to see some Imperial officers and leaders who are actually competent at their jobs, and yet that same arrogance that starts at the top with Palpatine himself and runs through all of the Imperial ranks is on display here. Major Partagaz, the leader of the ISB, is both intelligent, cunning, and resourceful, but is also blind to some of the larger goings-on presented to him by Dedra Meero, a fairly new ISB leader who might be itching for career advancement but clearly knows what she's doing. The rivalry between her and her colleague, Supervisor Blevin, is reminiscent of that between Moff Tarkin and Director Krennic, which I'm sure is intentional, given that Tony Gilroy worked on Rogue One as well. There isn't a whole lot to this rivalry yet, but I hope it will provide moments of juicy drama that feel more grounded and real than the rivalries we recently saw between Reva and her fellow Inquisitors. The series' take on Mon Mothma is intriguing. She's not meeting with the likes of Bail Organa and Padme Amidala in senatorial offices anymore. And yet, as she conducts the business of the rebellion in the shadows, it's also very much in plain sight. You have to play the part to deflect suspicion, even if it's all around her. It would have been good to see Bail Organa use some of this discretion in the Kenobi series, instead of blurting out information about the children into a hologram that anyone could find if Kenobi lost his transmitter, which he did. Mon's marriage is another point of interest. All does not seem well inside the opulent Coruscanti home of the senator from Chandrila. Is this a marriage of love or politics? Is her husband, who complains of boredom, actually an Imperial sympathizer or collaborator? I also found it interesting that her home is far better appointed and is much more opulent than Padme Amidala's home was in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Cyril Karn is removed from his post as Ferrix comes under full Imperial control and returns home to his mother. Is his home on Coruscant? I couldn't quite tell. The book's Catalyst and the Thrawn series of the Disney canon did a lot to expand upon Coruscanti culture, how powerful families try to maintain and raise their status. Is Karn part of one of these families? The apartment he walks into doesn't look overly wealthy, but it does look like it could be on Coruscant. Anyway, I doubt we've seen the last of him in this series, and I wonder where his story is going to go. I wonder too when we'll see Bix Colleen and Marva again. They're not featured this week, but I doubt we've seen the last of their interactions with Cassian. If I have a chief complaint, it's that we learn less about Cassian in this episode than some of the expanding cast of characters. Nevertheless, I am more than alright with this. It's as I said in my review of episodes 1 through 3, this story is not only the story of Cassian Andor, but also of the birth of the Rebel Alliance. This week's episode does a lot to lay the groundwork for that birth, makes the galaxy feel big just by the sheer size of Imperial ops underway, and through the introduction of many new characters we've never seen in Star Wars before. I also think that if this series had a Netflix-style premiere with all of its Season 1 episodes dropping at once, Cassian's personal story and character would have a quicker, more solid build-up. It's pretty clear from episodes 1 through 4 that this series is more suited to binging than individual weekly viewings, but the cliffhangers give us something to look forward to. This is also the first Star Wars episode I've seen in which not a single blaster shot is fired, no lightsabers are ignited, no one is even punched. And yet, this episode is all about war, the secret machinations and the stirrings of uprising and civil war. The tension is thick, the setting tangible, and the payoffs definitely forthcoming. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button so you'll be in the know when the next video comes out. If you have ideas for future content or would like to talk about this week's episode, please leave a comment below.